Hello and welcome to Wildly Curious, a podcast that tells you everything you need to know about nature and probably more than you wanted to know. I'm Laura.
And I'm Katy, and we are going to continue our bog banter for the holiday season. We talked about bog butter, bringing the families together for the holidays with multi-people that we don't know.
And now we're about to ring in the new year with this one.
Yeah, so this one I'm going to talk about. So again, guys, just a reminder, these are mini episodes until our next season is going to start in January. So until then, we're doing these quick little bog banter mini-sode episodes. The one that I'm going to talk about is the Tollund Man, Tollund.
Okay.
And this is probably the most famous bog discovery from any...
Ooh, is this the redheaded guy?
I don't remember if it said he had redheads or not.
I just remember seeing an image of super intact.
Yes, that's this guy. Like super well preserved.
I think he has red hair then.
Yeah, he's by far the most well preserved person that's ever been found in a bog, and he was thought to have been, for a while they thought he was just a murder victim, but he's well over 2,000 years old, and like I said, it's the Tollund Man. So he is, again, just like Laura talked last week, another bog body, meaning that his remains were preserved in the unique conditions of a peat bog. Again, remember I talked about in the first episode, the cold, acidic, oxygen poor, like freakishly well preserves these bodies.
Stops decomposition.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's insane how it just pickles their bodies. And in this one in particular, his skin, facial features, and even his internal organs keeps everything perfectly intact.
This is one of those things that would haunt your nightmares, guys, if you look up the picture.
Yeah. This is a weird one. So on May 8th, 1950, brothers Viggo and Emil Hoggard were harvesting peat in a Bogskodov, bog, approximately 12, this would be 12 kilometers. What is that? I don't know, more miles, in Denmark. As they were cutting through the layers of peat, they uncovered a lifelike face just peering up at them from the bog, which that alone, I would never harvest peat again.
Never again.
No, ever. Just
because the face is one of nightmares.
Yes, yeah. It is just because it's one of nightmares because it's so perfectly preserved. It's creepy. Yeah. It's not like
somebody made of wood.
Yes, it's not scary per se. It's so perfectly preserved. It's freaky. And so it was the body, whenever they found him, was about 7.5 feet. Under 7.5 feet of peat. So they were about digging down, harvesting everything. And it was positioned in a fetal-like position, which is interesting that you said in yours, Laura, they were also in a fetal-like position.
Yeah.
With the legs tucked up and arms bent. But this guy, and again, his facial features, it's almost like he was, sleeping. Almost like it's almost creepy how peaceful he looks. He wore a pointed sheepskin cap secured under the chin. He had a smooth hide belt around his waist, and most notably, a noose made of animal hide, still encircled on his neck, indicating death by hanging. Alarmed by the discovery, of course, the brothers contacted the local police. Upon arrival, the authorities quickly realized this was no ordinary case. Because of the preservation of the body, coupled with the ancient style of the cap and hat, the cap and the belt, suggested that they were dealing with a significant historical find rather than a modern-day murder. So archaeologists were then promptly called to investigate, and they started to examine. And I think the more that they did with him, the more they were just fascinated and holy cow, because again, perfectly preserved. So his skin retained the texture. His facial features were clearly discernible. You could see everything down to the stubble on his chin, which was visible.
That's so crazy.
Right? This exceptional step of preservation provided an unprecedented opportunity for researchers to study an individual from the Iron Age, offering profound insights into the period's cultural and ritualistic practices. So again, back then, a lot of times they sacrificed people into the bog for different gods and everything. And so often, even back, when did I say this? This was 1950. They kind of understood culturally that people were sacrificed. And so they thought that even though he was hung, was he believed to be a human sacrifice? And so they do know he lived during the Iron Age, roughly 375 to 210 BCE, a time when survival was deeply connected to nature and the communities relied on rituals to appease their gods. The Iron Age in Northern Europe was marked by a belief system where bogs were considered sacred spaces, basically like a portal between mortal and divine. Yeah, which makes sense.
Where else do you think you could just descend into hell other than a place that was like that?
That would also like almost like pause time in a way. Like you're dead, but you also look still perfectly alive, you know?
Yeah.
So the offerings placed into bogs were then thought to carry prayers for prosperity, fertility, and protection straight to the gods. The Tollund Man wasn't just killed, though. They do think he was sacrificed with intention. The noose around his neck tells us that he was hanged, a method often used in ritual killings to symbolize control over life and death, which is very interesting. Afterward, his body was carefully placed in the bog in a fetal-like position as if prepared for the gods. So whenever you were reading yours last week, like I didn't want to quite get into that, but
yeah.
Like, again, it'd be interesting that why the significance. And as soon as you were like, oh, a fetal-like position, I was like, huh. I wonder
Which is crazy because we're also talking about two very different places. Too,
yes.
Right? Like, I mean, yes, both in Europe, but like Denmark versus the Outer Hebrides of Scotland. Those people,
yes.
I mean, they could have met because of ships, but like,
yeah, oh, absolutely. But even just culturally, things carry through, especially sacrificing, you know what I mean, and rituals. And there's a lot of sacrificing that was going on over in Denmark with these. But yeah, so why sacrifice someone in the first place? Again, like I said, life during the Iron Age was very tough. Communities were often at the mercy of just nature's unpredictability, harsh winters, crop failures, disease. And so sacrifices were often seen, as in any culture, as a devotion and a way to secure favor for the gods to ensure survival.
So, I wonder, did they see, I mean, I'm sure they already analyzed this, but did they see if his neck was broken?
I don't know. I didn't see that or
I would just be curious.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because
if his neck was broken, yeah, then it was like, yeah.
Clearly hanging.
Yeah.
But also, if it's not broken, it doesn't necessarily have to be hanging. Could have just strangulation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they said that it was hung, so maybe they just said it was broken without saying it was, broken. One cool thing that they did do with his body, because it was so well preserved, was the Tollund Man came from what he ate before death, because his organs and everything were so perfectly preserved. So scientists analyzed the contents of his stomach and found his last meal was just simple porridge made of barley, flaxseed, and wild weeds, and like not grass. This was typical Iron Age fare, but it wasn't just the ingredients that stood out. There were over 40 types of plant material in the porridge, including some milky toxic weeds. So was the toxicity of it accidental? Could it have been part of the ritual?
Right? Like, was it like a numbing? Like, was it toxic enough that it made him delirious, but not so toxic that it killed him?
Yeah. So then,
because who knows? Sacrifice doesn't have to be unwilling either. Some people,
correct.
I think, could have been like,
I'm part
my
of
turn.
Yeah, I'm part of this. It's my turn. And that's what they were saying, because they know the meal was eaten about 12 to 24 hours before his death, at least, giving scientists like a level of precision and reconstruction of the timeline of his final day, that's how crazily like well preserved everything was. Yeah. So the last meal that they were studying definitely gives a glimpse into the Iron Age agriculture and food practices, because you can see what was eaten back then.
Yeah, what's available.
Yeah, it also shows how communities made use of every resource available, even plants we might consider undesirable today. So then why does the Tollund Man matter in general? Well, he's obviously not just like perfectly preserved body, but again, he's because of how he was sacrificed, killed, died, whatever it was. It again, like yours, Laura, yours had a lot of questions. This one kind of does too, but it starts to understand, or at least attempt to help to understand the different beliefs, traditions, and struggles of people who lived back then.
Yeah, well, plus, because he has just so much extra on him, like, you can really see a snapshot of culture.
Yes.
What he ate, what he wore, what he did.
Yeah, everything. So that's the Tollund Man. One of the most iconic bodies. You guys have to
look him up. It's amazing. The folds of his eyelids. He's literally just looks like he's asleep. Like
it does. It looks like he fell asleep one day and just woke up.
And
just
turned
this.
like wood. Yeah.
It's crazy. All right, guys.
Cool.
That's our third one. So go ahead and go. So please, if you could, support us on Patreon. It really helps us to be able to bring this content, because we have to pay for all this stuff. And so it would help us. And then, like I said, we'll be kicking off the new season come January. So until then, we will talk to you guys next week.
Later.